The deep space monitoring station hummed quietly in the void between stars. Kethra stared at the strange signals flowing across her screen. For 3 days, she had been trying to understand what she was seeing. The transmissions came from a small yellow star in the outer rim of the galaxy, a place the Velkari Empire had never bothered to visit. Kethra was the best signal analyst in the Velkari fleet. She had decoded the communications of 47 different species before their worlds fell to the Empire. Each time, the pattern was the same. First came fear, then desperate attempts to hide, then finally broken pleas for mercy that never came. But these signals were different. The beings sending them called themselves humans, and they seemed to have no idea that death was coming for them. Their transmissions spoke of peace, of working together, of something they called hope. Kethra found it almost sad. In a few months, these humans would learn what every other species had learned. The strong take what they want, and the weak exist only to serve. She pressed a button and called for Admiral Zethkor. The massive Velkari appeared on her screen within minutes. His 4 eyes glowed with the excitement of a predator who had found new prey. "What have you found?" Zethkor asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 12 star systems. "A new species, Admiral. They call themselves humans. Their technology is very basic. They have not even left their home system yet. Their weapons are simple chemical explosives and primitive energy beams. They should be easy to defeat." Zethkor's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Show me their world." Kethra switched the display to show the planet, Earth. It was a blue and green world covered in water and what the humans called forests. Cities glowed on the night side, millions of lights showing where billions of these creatures lived their short, meaningless lives. "How many of them are there?" Zethkor asked. "Nearly 8 billion, Admiral. More than any species we have conquered before. They could provide workers for the Empire for many generations. If they choose to serve," Zethkor said. "Have you found any signs of military strength?" Kethra pulled up more data. "They have many different groups that fight each other. They call them nations. Each nation has its own military forces. They seem to spend much time fighting among themselves over resources and territory. This should make them easier to control once we show them our power." Zethkor studied the information. The humans had thousands of nuclear weapons, but these were crude devices compared to Velkari antimatter bombs. Their spaceships were slow chemical rockets that could barely reach their own moon. Their largest military vessels were primitive metal boats that floated on water. It would be like fighting children with sticks. "Prepare the subjugation fleet," Zethkor ordered. 12 ships should be more than enough. We will give them the standard choice." Kethra nodded. Every species got the same offer: surrender completely and serve the Empire, or watch their world burn. Most chose to surrender after seeing a single demonstration of Velkari power. The few that chose to fight never lasted more than a few hours. Captain Velnash received the orders with enthusiasm. His ship, the Iron Claw, was one of the fastest in the fleet. He had been present at the conquest of 6 different worlds, and each victory had been easier than the last. These humans would be no different. The Velkari fleet gathered at the edge of the human solar system within a week. 12 massive warships, each one larger than the biggest human city. Their dark metal hulls absorbed light, making them nearly invisible against the black of space. Energy shields surrounded each ship like a second skin of pure force. Velnash looked at the tactical display and laughed. The humans had a few small stations orbiting their world, but nothing that could threaten a Velkari warship. A single plasma blast would turn any of those stations into glowing gas. "Send the message," Zethkor commanded from his flagship. The transmission went out in simple mathematical language that any intelligent species could understand. The message was always the same: "We are the Velkari Empire. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender all military forces and prepare to serve, or we will destroy your civilization. You have one of your planetary rotations to decide." Then they waited. This was always Zethkor's favorite part, watching a species realize how small and helpless they truly were. Some begged immediately, Others tried to negotiate. A few attempted to hide, but all of them eventually understood that resistance was impossible. The human response came faster than expected. A voice speaking their primitive language, which the ship computers quickly translated. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Earth Defense Coalition. You have entered human space without permission and made threats against our world. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The bridge of the flagship fell silent for a moment. Then Velnash began to laugh. Did they just threaten us? Zethkor was not amused. Apparently these humans need a lesson in reality. Velnash, destroy one of their orbital stations. Make it visible from their planet. With pleasure, Admiral. The Iron Claw moved closer to Earth, its weapons charging. The humans had built a large space station that orbited their world like a metal moon. It was clearly one of their most important structures, home to hundreds of their kind. Velnash aimed carefully and fired a single plasma bolt. The beam of superheated energy crossed space in seconds and struck the station. There was a brief flash of light, and then nothing remained but expanding gas and debris. "Now we wait for them to beg," Velnash said confidently. But the next human transmission was not what they expected. The same voice, Admiral Kim Tae-ho, spoke again. His words were calm and cold. "You have just murdered 300 innocent people. This act of aggression will not be forgiven or forgotten. All human forces are now authorized to engage with lethal force." Kethra watched her screens in confusion. Instead of panic, she was seeing massive activity across the human world. Military bases were activating. Ships were leaving ports. Aircraft were taking off from hundreds of different locations. It looked almost like the humans were preparing to fight. "Admiral," she called to Zethkor. "The humans are not surrendering. They appear to be mobilizing their forces." Zethkor studied the display with growing irritation. "Impossible. No species has ever chosen to fight after seeing our weapons." "Perhaps they do not understand how powerful we are," Velnash suggested. "Their technology is so primitive that they might not realize what they saw." "Then we will teach them," Zethkor decided. "Move the fleet into position around their world. Destroy a few more targets. Once they see their cities burning, they will remember their place." But as the Velkari ships moved closer to Earth, something unexpected happened. The humans were not running away or hiding. Instead, they were coming to meet them. Kim Tae-ho stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Coalition, watching the alien ships approach on the main screen. Around him, officers from every nation on Earth worked, together with desperate efficiency. The impossible had happened. After decades of preparing for this moment, first contact had finally come. And the aliens wanted to enslave humanity. "All stations report ready," announced Commander Park Dong-woo. "Every military asset on the planet is at full alert." Kim Tae-ho nodded grimly. Earth's defenders were brave, but they all knew the odds. The alien ships were clearly more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, but that did not matter. Some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. "Dr. Lee Boram, what can you tell us about their technology?" The xenobiologist looked up from her analysis station. "Their ships use some kind of energy shielding and plasma weapons, but Admiral, their design suggests they have never faced kinetic weapons before. All their defenses seem built to stop energy attacks." "Interesting. Colonel Choi Min-ho, are our railguns ready?" "All orbital defense platforms are armed and tracking the enemy ships, sir. We also have surprise packages ready." Kim Tae-ho allowed himself a small smile. The aliens expected easy prey. They were about to learn that humanity had spent thousands of years learning how to kill efficiently. "Send one final message," he ordered. "Tell them they have one chance to leave our system peacefully." The message went out, but there was no response except the steady approach of the 12 warships. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving massive electromagnetic interference from the alien ships. They appear to be jamming our satellites. Switch to hardened military channels and activate Plan Omega." Across Earth, hidden, military installations came online. Weapons that had been disguised as civilian structures revealed their true purpose. Humanity had learned long ago that in war, Surprise was often more valuable than superior firepower. The Velkari fleet settled into orbit around Earth, confident and ready to begin the systematic destruction that would force human surrender. They had done this dozens of times before. But as Admiral Zethkor prepared to order the bombardment of human cities, his sensors detected something that made him pause. The humans were launching ships. Hundreds of small craft were rising from the planet's surface, moving toward the Velkari fleet with obvious hostile intent. "Kethra," he called, "what are those vessels?" The analyst studied her screens with growing confusion. The converted mining ship Determination hurtled through space toward the alien fleet. Captain Jiang Wubin gripped his command chair as the massive enemy vessels grew larger on his screen. Behind him, his crew of former asteroid miners worked, frantically to prepare their makeshift weapons. "Range to target 200 kilometers and closing," called his navigator, Engineer Yang Mi-young. She had spent 15 years cutting rocks apart with industrial lasers. Now those same tools were aimed at alien warships. "All ships. This is Admiral Kim Tae-ho," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember, we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to learn how they fight. Every piece of information you gather could save millions of lives." Jiang Wubin understood. Earth's hastily converted fleet was never meant to defeat the aliens. They were scouts, sent to test enemy defenses and discover weaknesses. Most of them would not survive the next hour. On the Velkari flagship, Admiral Zethkor watched the approaching human vessels with growing irritation. The largest of them was smaller than his smallest escort ship. Their energy readings were pathetic. What did these creatures think they could accomplish? "Sir," reported Communications Officer Nethra, "the human vessels are not responding to our warning transmissions." "Then destroy them," Zethkor ordered. "Show them what happens to those who challenge the Empire." Captain Velnash targeted the lead human ship and fired a plasma bolt. The beam of superheated energy streaked across space and struck the Determination directly. Velnash expected to see the ship vaporize instantly, as had happened to every other vessel that faced Velkari weapons. Instead, the human ship simply absorbed the hit and continued forward. Its hull glowed red-hot where the plasma had struck, but the vessel remained intact and functional. "What?" Velnash stared at his display in confusion. How is that possible? The answer lay in human engineering philosophy. While the Velkari built their ships with advanced materials that were strong but brittle, humans had learned to build things that could take damage and keep working. The Determination's hull was simple steel, thick and heavy. When the plasma hit, it melted the outer layers but did not penetrate to the vital systems inside. "Return fire!" Jiang Wubin shouted. The human ship launched its weapons, but instead of energy beams it fired chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speed by magnetic rails. The projectiles were simple iron bars, each one weighing several tons and moving at significant fractions of light speed. The first kinetic projectile struck Velnash's ship and passed completely through its energy shields as if they were not there. The shields had been designed to deflect plasma and laser fire, not solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The iron bar punched through the alien hull like it was paper and exploded deep inside the ship. Alarm screamed across the iron claw as atmosphere vented from dozens of hull breaches. Velnash felt his ship shudder as internal explosions tore through critical systems. "Impossible," he gasped. "Our shields should have stopped that." But the human attacks were just beginning. Dozens of converted ships opened fire with railguns, missile launchers, and improvised kinetic weapons. The Velkari found themselves facing a type of warfare they had never encountered before. Dr. Lee Boram watched the battle from Earth's command center, analyzing every detail. "Admiral, look at this. Their shields are completely ineffective against physical projectiles. They have never fought an enemy that uses kinetic weapons." Admiral Kim Tae-ho nodded grimly. "What about their return? Fire? Devastating against unshielded targets. But our ships are built for industrial work. They can absorb tremendous damage before failing." On the screen, they watched the Determination take hit after hit from alien plasma weapons. The ship's hull was glowing like a star, but it kept fighting. Finally, after absorbing enough energy to melt a small city, the converted miner exploded in a brief flash of light. but it had accomplished its mission. In the few minutes of combat, Captain Zhang, Wubin and his crew had proven that the aliens could be hurt. Admiral Zethkor stared at his battle reports in disbelief. 3 of his ships had taken significant damage from the primitive human vessels. The Iron Claw was completely crippled, its crew evacuated to other ships, and all they had managed to destroy was a handful of converted cargo haulers. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These humans have technology centuries behind ours." Kethra had been analyzing the human weapons. "Admiral, I believe the problem is that we have never faced kinetic warfare before. All the species we have conquered used energy weapons similar to our own. Our defenses were designed to stop plasma and laser attacks. And the humans? They appear to have developed their technology differently. They rely heavily on physical projectiles accelerated to high speeds. Our shields cannot stop solid matter moving at those velocities." Zethkor's 4 eyes blazed with anger. "Then we adapt, modify our shields to deflect kinetic weapons. That will take time, Admiral, perhaps several days." "We do not have several days." Zethkor smashed his fist against the command console. "The Empire expects quick victories. If word spreads that a primitive species has damaged our fleet, other worlds might begin to resist." The Admiral was right to be concerned. The Velkari Empire ruled through fear and the appearance of invincibility. If that appearance was shattered, rebellions could spread across dozens of star systems. "Sir," Nethra interrupted, "we are receiving another transmission from the planet." Admiral Kim Taeho's voice filled the bridge. "Alien Commander, your ships have been damaged by our initial defense. This is your final warning. Leave our system now, or face the full strength of human military forces." Velnash, now commanding from a secondary ship after losing the Iron Claw, could barely contain his rage. "They dare to threaten us, after we have shown them our power." But Zethkor was beginning to understand that these humans were unlike any enemy they had faced before. Most species became more desperate to negotiate as the situation grew worse. The humans seemed to become more aggressive. "What is the status of their military forces?" he asked. Kethra consulted her sensors. "Admiral, this is strange. Instead of hiding their remaining forces, the humans appear to be concentrating them. We are detecting massive troop movements on the planet's surface. They are gathering their armies instead of dispersing them." "That makes no tactical sense," Velnash protested. "Concentrated forces are easier to destroy with orbital bombardment. Unless," Zethkor said slowly, "they are planning to attack us again." The idea seemed impossible. The humans had just lost dozens of ships and seen their weapons barely scratch the Velkari fleet. Any rational species would be looking for ways to surrender with minimal losses. Instead, the humans were preparing for a larger battle. Colonel Choi Min-ho stood in the briefing room deep beneath Seoul, looking at the faces of soldiers from every nation on Earth. American Marines sat next to Russian Spetsnaz. British SAS operators compared notes with Chinese Special Forces. For the first time in human history, every military unit on the planet was working toward the same goal. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "our converted fleet has proven that the aliens can be hurt. But it has also shown us that conventional space combat is not enough. We need to get aboard their ships." The room erupted in questions and protests. The idea of boarding alien vessels seemed like suicide. "Sir," called a British officer, "those ships are kilometers long and filled with hostile aliens. How do we even get aboard them?" Choi Min-ho smiled grimly. "The same way humans have been boarding enemy ships for thousands of years. We get close, we cut our way in, and we fight them hand to hand." He activated the main display showing detailed scans of the alien vessels. Dr. Lee Bo-Ram has analyzed their ship designs. They are built for ship-to-ship combat in open space. The corridors are wide and straight, perfect for energy weapons. But they have never had to deal with infantry combat inside their own ships. "What makes you think we can succeed where our space fleet failed?" asked a German commando. "Because," Choi Min-ho replied, "these aliens have been winning easy victories for centuries. They have never faced an enemy willing to board their ships and fight them in close quarters. They have no experience with the kind of warfare humans have been practicing for millennia. The plan was desperate and dangerous. Small teams of human soldiers would approach the alien ships in stealth shuttles, cut through the hulls, and attempt to capture or disable the vessels from within. It was the kind of mission that military historians would call either brilliant or insane. Remember, Choi Min-ho concluded, we are not just fighting for Earth. Every species in the galaxy that these aliens have enslaved is counting on us to prove that the Valkyrie can be defeated. If we fail, the Empire continues. If we succeed, we give hope to billions of beings across the stars. The soldiers filed out to prepare for what might be humanity's most important battle. Behind them, the command staff continued planning for scenarios that grew more desperate by the hour. Admiral Zethkor made his decision. The humans had proven more troublesome than expected, but they were still primitives with inferior technology. A demonstration of true Valkyrie power would surely convince them to surrender. Target their largest city, he commanded. Prepare antimatter. Warheads, sir, Nethra said carefully. That will kill millions of civilians. The stealth shuttle Ghost Rider drifted silently toward the massive Valkyrie warship. Inside the cramped passenger compartment, 12 human soldiers checked their weapons one final time. Colonel Choi Min-ho studied the alien vessel through his helmet display looking for the best entry point. Target acquired, whispered Sergeant Huang Jisoo, the team's demolitions expert. Hull thickness appears to be about 2 meters of some kind of metal alloy. Can you cut through it? Choi Min-ho asked. Sir, I could cut through the side of a mountain with what we are carrying. The shuttle pilot, Captain Kim Hae-won, maneuvered them close to the alien ship's hull. The Valkyrie vessel was so large that its surface stretched beyond the horizon, like landing on a metal planet. Strange symbols and patterns covered the hull, but there were no obvious defensive systems designed to stop boarding parties. They really have never dealt with this kind of attack, observed Corporal Park Si-jun, the team's communications specialist. Huang Jisoo attached her cutting charges to the hull and activated them. The thermite burned through the alien metal like butter, creating a hole large enough for the team to enter. Atmosphere rushed out of the breach carrying strange gases and the smell of ozone. Masks on, Choi Min-ho ordered. We do not know if their air is safe for humans. The 12 soldiers dropped through the hole into the alien ship. They found themselves in a wide corridor lined with smooth walls that seemed to glow with their own light. Everything was oversized, built for beings much larger than humans. Motion sensors detect movement ahead, reported Private Yu Hee-jin, scanning with her equipment. Multiple contacts moving in our direction. The first Valkyrie security team rounded the corner 30 seconds later. The aliens were massive, nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and tough-looking scaled skin. They carried energy weapons that hummed with barely contained power. When they saw the humans, they stopped in surprise. The Valkyrie had never seen beings like these. The humans were small, only about 2 meters tall, with soft-looking skin and only 2 arms each. They looked fragile and weak, but they carried strange weapons that looked crude compared to Valkyrie energy rifles. Surrender, primitives, called the lead Valkyrie in translated speech. You cannot defeat us with your inferior technology. Choi Min-ho's response was to open fire with his assault rifle. The chemical propellant weapon fired metal bullets at supersonic speed, making a thunderous noise in the enclosed corridor. The Valkyrie security chief took 3 rounds center mass and collapsed, his scaled armor no match for high-velocity projectiles. The other aliens tried to return fire, but their energy weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat. In the narrow corridor, the wide-beam plasma bolts dispersed harmlessly against the walls. The humans, meanwhile, had spent centuries perfecting weapons for close-quarters fighting. Within 30 seconds, the entire Valkyrie security team was dead. Holy shit, breathed Sergeant Huang Jisoo, staring at the alien bodies. They really do not know how to fight infantry combat. Choi Min-ho examined one of the fallen aliens. Look at their armor. It is designed to protect against energy weapons, but these metal plates actually helped our bullets penetrate deeper. And their weapons are completely wrong for fighting inside a ship. The team moved deeper into the alien vessel, following the maps Dr. Lee Borum had created from their scans. Their goal was the ship's power core. If they could disable it, the massive warship would be helpless. Behind them, alarms began to sound throughout the Velkari ship. Commander Nalteth received the security alert with disbelief. "What do you mean there are hostiles aboard the ship?" "Sir," reported the duty officer, "Security Team 7 has been eliminated. The intruders are moving toward the power section." "Eliminated? By what?" "Unknown, sir. The attackers appear to be members of the primitive species from the planet below." Nalteth's 4 eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. How did they get aboard?" "They appear to have cut through the hull and entered through the breach." "Cut through the hull?" Nalteth had never heard of such a thing. In thousands of years of Velkari history, no enemy had ever attempted to board their ships. The idea seemed barbaric and primitive. "Send security teams 3 and 5 to intercept them," he ordered. "Use heavy weapons." But as more Velkari forces moved to stop the human boarding party, they discovered the same problem their first security team had faced. Their weapons and tactics were designed for space combat and planetary bombardment. They had no experience fighting enemy soldiers inside their own ships. The human boarding party, meanwhile, was making steady progress through the alien vessel. Every time they encountered Velkari defenders, the result was the same. The aliens were larger and stronger, but they fought like beings who had never faced determined resistance. "They keep grouping together in the open corridors," observed Corporal Park Se-jun as they stepped over another pile of alien bodies. "It is like they want to be shot. Their whole military doctrine is based on technological superiority," Choi Minho replied. "They have never had to develop tactics for fighting an equal opponent." Private Yu Hyejin checked her scanner. "Power core is 50 meters ahead, sir, but I am detecting a lot of movement. Looks like they are concentrating their forces to defend it." "Good," Choi Minho said grimly. "Let them bunch up. Huang, how much explosive do you have left?" The demolitions expert smiled behind her helmet. "Enough to turn their power core into scrap metal, sir." On the bridge of the Velkari flagship, Admiral Zethkor was dealing with reports that seemed impossible. Not only had the humans managed to board one of his ships, but they were actually winning the fighting inside it. "Sir," reported Kethra, "we have lost contact with the destroyer Void Striker. The last transmission indicated that human boarders had reached the engineering section." "How many humans?" Zethkor demanded. "Estimated 12 individuals, sir." 12? The Admiral's voice rose to a roar. 12 primitives have captured one of our warships? "Not captured, sir. Destroyed. The ship's power core has been detonated. The Void Striker is dead in space." Zethkor stared at the tactical display in growing horror. A single squad of human soldiers had done what no enemy fleet had ever accomplished. They had destroyed a Velkari warship using nothing but primitive weapons and explosive devices. "Sir," Communications Officer Nethra interrupted, "we are receiving transmissions from the human planet. It appears they are broadcasting our casualties across their communication networks." "What are they saying?" Nethra listened to the translated speech, her expression growing troubled. "They are claiming that Velkari forces can be defeated by human soldiers. They are providing tactical information about our weaknesses to their entire population." This was a disaster beyond anything Zethkor had imagined. Not only were the humans refusing to surrender, but they were treating the battle as a learning experience. Every engagement taught them more about Velkari tactics and technology. "Admiral," Kethra called urgently, "sensors detect more human boarding craft approaching our remaining ships." Zethkor looked at the display and saw dozens of small human vessels moving toward his fleet. If each one carried a squad of soldiers like the one that had destroyed the Void Striker, his entire force was in danger. "All ships, implement anti-boarding protocols," he ordered. "Sir," Nethra said quietly, "we do not have anti-boarding protocols. No enemy has ever attempted to board our vessels before." The truth was becoming clear. The Velkari Empire had grown powerful by conquering species that surrendered quickly. They had never developed tactics for dealing with an enemy that refused to give up, and instead became more dangerous as the fighting continued. On Earth, Dr. Lee Boram was coordinating the analysis of data from the boarding actions. Each successful mission provided more information about alien technology and psychology. Admiral Kim, she reported. "The boarding teams have confirmed our suspicions. The Velkari are completely unprepared for close-quarters combat. Their ships have no internal defenses designed to stop infantry attacks." Admiral Kim Tae-ho studied the tactical reports. "What about their ground combat capabilities?" "Based on intercepted communications, they appear to rely entirely on orbital bombardment. For planetary assault, they have never had to fight a ground war against a defended planet. So they are strong at long range but weak up close," Kim Tae-ho mused. "That gives us options." General Park Dong-woo joined the conversation. "Sir, I recommend we escalate the boarding actions. If we can capture one of their ships intact, we might be able to reverse engineer their technology." Kim Tae-ho nodded. "Do it. But remember, our primary goal is not to win this battle. It is to learn everything we can about these aliens and transmit that information to our colonies beyond the solar system. Even if Earth falls, humanity will know how to fight them." The second wave of boarding actions began an hour later. This time, the human teams were better prepared and better armed. They had learned from the first mission and adapted their tactics accordingly. Colonel Choi Min-ho led the assault on the Velkari command ship himself. His target was not the power core this time, but the bridge. If they could capture Admiral Zethkor alive, they might learn valuable intelligence about the Empire's plans and capabilities. Admiral Zethkor sat in the human holding cell, his forearms bound with simple metal chains. The bonds were crude but effective. More humiliating was the fact that his captors were barely half his size. These humans treated him not as a conquered enemy commander, but as a common criminal. Colonel Choi Min-ho entered the cell carrying a simple metal chair. He sat down across from the massive alien and pulled out a recording device. "I want to ask you some questions," Choi Min-ho said calmly. "I will tell you nothing," Zethkor replied. "The Empire will come for me. When they do, your entire species will pay for this insult. Maybe. But your Empire will not arrive for several weeks. By then, this conversation will have been broadcast to every star system in the galaxy." Zethkor's four eyes widened. "You would not dare." "Admiral, you seem to misunderstand the situation. Your Empire enslaves entire species. You just tried to enslave us. From our perspective, you are war criminals. We have no reason to treat you with courtesy." The human's calm tone was more unsettling than shouting would have been. Zethkor had expected rage, threats, perhaps torture. Instead, he was facing beings who treated the destruction of his fleet as a minor inconvenience. "What do you want to know?" he asked reluctantly. "Everything. How many ships does the Empire have? Which species have you conquered? What are your military capabilities?" "And if I refuse to answer?" Choi Min-ho shrugged. "Then you sit in this cell while we figure it out ourselves. We have already learned quite a lot from your captured ships. Your technology is not as advanced as you believe." This was true. Human engineers had spent days examining the alien vessels, and their conclusions were disturbing for the Velkari. The Empire's technology was powerful, but specialized. Their ships were designed to fight enemies who used similar weapons and tactics. Against an opponent with different technology, they were far less effective. Dr. Lee Boram had made the most important discovery. The Velkari military had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. They had conquered weaker species through intimidation and technological superiority, but they had no experience against enemies who fought back effectively. "Your empire is built on fear," Choi Min-ho continued. "But fear only works if people believe you are invincible. We have just proven that you are not." Zethkor remained silent, but his expression showed he understood the implications. Every species the Velkari had conquered would eventually learn that human soldiers had destroyed an entire fleet. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was shattered. On Earth, the war effort was entering a new phase. President Kang So-young addressed the United Earth Assembly from the Emergency Command Center in Geneva. "Fellow leaders," she began, "we have achieved something unprecedented. We have captured alien technology and prisoners, but we must not let this victory make us overconfident. The enemy fleet we defeated was only a small part of their empire. The assembled representatives from every nation on Earth listened in grim silence. They had all seen the reports from the captured alien computers. The Velkari Empire controlled hundreds of star systems and had enslaved dozens of species. Earth had won a single battle, but the war was far from over. Intelligence analysis suggests that the Empire will respond to this defeat with overwhelming force, President Kang continued. They cannot allow word to spread that humans have defeated them. We estimate they will send at least 100 ships to sterilize our solar system. General Park Dong-woo stood to address the assembly. We have perhaps 6 months before the next attack arrives. In that time, we must prepare for total war. Every human facility, every weapon, every resource must be dedicated to our survival. What are our chances? Asked the representative from Brazil. Park. Dong-woo's expression was grave. Honestly, very poor, but we have advantages the aliens do not expect. They will come expecting to face a primitive species. Instead, they will find an enemy that has spent 6 months preparing for their arrival. The preparations began immediately. Every military base on Earth was expanded and reinforced. Civilian factories were converted to produce weapons and ammunition. Most importantly, Earth's hidden colonies beyond the solar system were contacted and warned of what was coming. Engineer Yu Hye-jin worked around the clock to analyze the captured Velkari technology. Her team had discovered something remarkable. The aliens were actually behind humans in several important areas. Their weapons are more powerful than ours, she reported to Admiral Kim Tae-ho, but they are also less reliable. They seem to have sacrificed durability for raw power. Our weapons may be weaker, but they can fire continuously for hours without overheating. What about their ships? Same problem. Their hull materials are stronger than steel, but they are brittle. Once you penetrate the outer layer, the entire structure becomes unstable. That is why our kinetic weapons were so effective. This information was immediately incorporated into Earth's defense plans. If the humans could not match alien firepower, they would win through persistence and reliability. Scientist Lim Chan-wook made an even more important discovery while examining the alien computer systems. The Velkari Empire was not as unified as it appeared. Many of the conquered species were held in line only through fear and constant surveillance. Admiral, he reported excitedly, I have found communications logs from dozens of different species. Many of them are actively planning rebellions. They are only waiting for proof that the Velkari can be defeated. Kim Tae-ho studied the data with growing hope. Can we contact them? I believe so. The Velkari use a standard communication protocol across their empire. If we can transmit our battle records to these species, it might trigger uprisings across hundreds of worlds. This became Earth's most important mission. Even if the planet fell to the next alien attack, humanity could still strike a devastating blow against the Empire by inspiring rebellions throughout Velkari space. Commander Nalteth had escaped the destruction of the fleet in one of the few remaining ships. Now he faced the humiliating task of reporting the defeat to the Empire's high command. His message would travel faster than light, reaching the Velkari homeworld in just 2 weeks. But the humans had also captured Velkari communication equipment. Dr. Lee Boram's team had learned to use the alien transmitters, and they were already broadcasting their own messages across the galaxy. The transmission was simple but devastating. Complete tactical data on Velkari weaknesses, video recordings of human soldiers destroying alien ships, and most importantly, proof that the Empire could be defeated by a species they considered primitive. On 100 different worlds, enslaved beings watched in amazement as tiny human soldiers fought massive Velkari warriors and won. The humans were smaller, weaker, and less advanced, but they refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. The effect was exactly what Earth's leaders had hoped for. Rebellions began erupting across the Empire as species that had been crushed for centuries suddenly found the courage to fight back. The Velkari home fleet received Nalteth's report with shock and disbelief. High Admiral Keth Marin, Supreme Commander of all Velkari forces, read the battle summary 3 times before accepting that it was real. A single primitive planet has destroyed an entire subjugation fleet? He asked his staff. Yes, sir. And the humans have broadcast tactical information about our weaknesses to every system in the Empire. We are receiving reports of uprisings on 47 different worlds. Kethmaran's 4 eyes blazed with rage. Then we will make an example of these humans that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Prepare the Extinction Fleet. The Extinction Fleet was the Empire's ultimate weapon. 200 warships equipped with antimatter bombs capable of sterilizing entire star systems. It had been used only twice in Velkari history, both times to destroy species that had refused to surrender. Sir, his aide said carefully, deploying the Extinction Fleet will leave the home systems undefended. With so many rebellions occurring simultaneously, the rebellions will end when we broadcast the complete destruction of the human homeworld. Kethmaran interrupted. All species will remember what happens to those who defy the Empire. But, as the massive fleet prepared to depart for Earth, the High Admiral received reports that made him reconsider. The human broadcasts were not just inspiring rebellions. They were providing detailed tactical information that was making those rebellions. Successful species that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly using human tactics to defeat Velkari forces. They were building kinetic weapons, attempting boarding actions, and most disturbingly, they were working together across species lines. Sir, reported Intelligence Officer Zarthek, we have lost contact with 7 different star systems. It appears the rebellions are spreading faster than we can respond to them. Kethmaran realized he was facing a strategic nightmare. The Empire was built on the assumption that conquered species would remain weak and divided. The humans had shattered that assumption by proving that Velkari forces could be defeated, and by sharing the knowledge of how to do it. How long until the Extinction Fleet reaches the human system? He asked. 6 months, sir. Too long. We need to end this before the rebellion spread further. Kethmaran made a decision that would haunt him forever. Double the fleet's speed. I do not care about crew safety or mechanical stress. The Velkari Extinction Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system, like a swarm of metal death. 200 warships, each one the size of a city, arranged themselves in perfect formation around the yellow star that gave life to Earth. High Admiral Kethmaran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and surveyed the primitive system that had caused so much trouble for the Empire. The third planet was a small blue and green world that looked completely defenseless from this distance. Begin long-range bombardment, he ordered. I want this system sterilized completely. Nothing must survive to inspire other rebellions. But as the Velkari weapons charged, something unexpected happened. The space around Earth erupted with activity. Thousands of small objects began moving outward from the planet, spreading through the solar system like seeds from a flower. What? Are those contacts? Kethmaran demanded. Sensor Officer Malketh studied his displays with growing confusion. Sir, they appear to be small spacecraft, but many of them are too small to carry crews. They are moving in random patterns throughout the system. Escape pods? No, sir. These vessels are heading directly toward our fleet. Kethmaran's 4 eyes narrowed. The humans were launching some kind of attack, but what could they hope to accomplish with such small vessels? His fleet could destroy 1,000 such craft, without taking damage. Ignore them, he decided. Continue with the bombardment. But Admiral Kim Tae-ho, watching from Earth's command center, smiled grimly as he saw the alien reaction. The Velkari had fallen into the trap exactly as planned. Phase 1 complete, he announced. All ships, execute Plan Omega. The small craft racing toward the alien fleet were not manned fighters or escape pods. They were automated kamikaze drones, each one carrying a nuclear warhead, and programmed with one simple mission: ram the largest enemy ship they could find and detonate. The humans had learned from their previous battles that Velkari shields could not stop kinetic weapons. Nuclear warheads traveling at significant fractions of light speed would penetrate any defense the aliens possessed. The first wave of drones reached the Velkari fleet 3 minutes later. The aliens tried to shoot them down with plasma weapons, but there were too many targets moving too fast. Dozens of nuclear explosions began tearing through the alien formation. Impossible! Keith Moran shouted as his flagship shook from nearby detonations. How can primitives have such advanced automated systems? The answer was simple: they did not. The drones were controlled by human pilots sitting in bunkers deep beneath Earth's surface, using quantum communication links to direct the unmanned craft. It was crude technology compared to true artificial intelligence, but it was effective. Within 10 minutes, the Velkari fleet had lost 30 ships to the suicide attacks. The remaining vessels were forced to break formation and scatter, disrupting their planned bombardment of Earth. "Sir," Malketh reported with panic in his voice, "the humans are launching a second wave, larger vessels this time." Kim Tae-ho watched the tactical display as Earth's converted fleet moved to engage the scattered alien forces. The ships were the same type that had fought in the first battle: converted cargo haulers and mining vessels armed with kinetic weapons and crewed by volunteers who knew they were not coming home. But this time, the humans had advantages they had not possessed before. They knew Velkari tactics and weaknesses. They had studied captured alien technology for months. Most importantly, they were fighting an enemy whose formation had been broken by the drone attacks. Captain Jiang Wubin, now commanding a converted battleship called Indomitable, led the human fleet into close combat with the aliens. His vessel had been built from the hull of a cargo ship, but it was armed with railguns capable of punching through any Velkari shield. "All ships, target the largest enemy vessels," he broadcast. "Remember, we are not trying to win. We are trying to cost them as much as possible." The battle that followed was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their alien opponents, darted between the massive Velkari warships like fighters attacking bombers. Their kinetic weapons tore through alien hulls, while the Velkari plasma beams struggled to track such small, fast-moving targets. But the humans were paying a terrible price for their tactics. For every alien ship destroyed, Earth lost 3 or 4 of its own vessels. The math was brutal but necessary. Earth had hundreds of converted ships. The aliens had brought their finest warships, each one irreplaceable. Engineer Yang Mi-young died when her ship was vaporized by a direct plasma hit, but not before her crew had destroyed 2 alien cruisers with a coordinated ramming attack. Captain Kim Hae-won followed the Velkari flagship into Earth's atmosphere, firing continuously until both ships crashed into the Pacific Ocean. Admiral Keith Moran found himself fighting a battle unlike any in Velkari history. His ships were more powerful than the human vessels, but the humans fought with a desperation and creativity that his forces could not match. Every time his fleet tried to regroup, more suicide attacks forced them to scatter again. "Sir," Malketh called urgently, "we are detecting massive ground-based weapons firing from the planet's surface." The final phase of Earth's defense was beginning. Hidden railguns built into mountains and disguised as civilian structures began firing massive projectiles at the alien fleet. The weapons had been designed for orbital construction, but they proved devastatingly effective against spacecraft. Colonel Choi Min-ho led the last boarding assault of the war. His target was the alien flagship itself, damaged and vulnerable. After hours of continuous combat, his team of 50 soldiers launched from a crippled human destroyer and cut their way into the massive alien vessel. The fighting inside the ship was fierce, but brief. The Velkari crew, already demoralized by the unexpected resistance, could not stand against human soldiers who had trained for months specifically for this mission. Within an hour, Choi Min-ho stood on the bridge of the enemy flagship, holding High Admiral Keith Moran at gunpoint. "Your fleet is destroyed," he told the alien commander. "Your empire's reputation is broken. Rebellions are spreading across every system you control. It is over." Keith Moran looked around his ruined bridge at the bodies of his officers. "You have won this battle, but you have doomed your species. The Empire will send everything it has to destroy you." "Maybe," Choi Min-ho replied. "But by then half your empire will be in rebellion. How many ships will you have left to send?" The alien admiral said nothing, but his expression showed he understood the strategic situation. The Empire was crumbling from within, and there were not enough loyal forces left to maintain control over hundreds of star systems. Dr. Lee Bo-ram activated the final part of Earth's plan from her command bunker. Using the captured Velkari communication systems, She broadcast a complete record of the battle to every corner of the galaxy. The message was simple but devastating. A primitive planet had not only resisted the Empire's finest fleet but had destroyed it completely. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Velkari. Species that had been enslaved for centuries rose in coordinated rebellion. Alien races that had never spoken to each other began working together, using human tactics and human inspiration to overthrow their oppressors. On the Velkari homeworld, emergency sessions of the High Command struggled to deal with reports of simultaneous uprisings in over 300 star systems. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was collapsing within weeks, but Earth had paid the ultimate price for its victory. The planet's surface was scarred by orbital bombardment. Its cities lay in ruins. Nearly half of humanity was dead, and the remainder faced years of rebuilding from the devastation. President Kang So-young, speaking from a shelter deep beneath the ruins of Geneva, addressed the surviving population. "We have paid in full for our freedom and the freedom of every enslaved species in the galaxy. The price was terrible, but it was worth paying. We have shown the universe that tyranny can be defeated, no matter how powerful it appears." Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood in the wreckage of his command center, looking at the final casualty reports. Earth's entire military was gone. Most of its industrial capacity was destroyed. But the planet had achieved something unprecedented. It had broken the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Engineer Yu Hye-jin, one of the few technical specialists to survive the war, was already working on plans for reconstruction. "Admiral, we have learned much from the alien technology. If we can establish contact with the rebelling species, we might be able to share that knowledge and help coordinate resistance across the galaxy." The work of rebuilding began immediately, but it was work with a purpose beyond mere survival. Earth had become the symbol of resistance against tyranny, and the surviving humans were determined to help other species achieve their own freedom. Scientist Lim Chan-wook, analyzing communications from across the galaxy, reported that the rebellions were succeeding beyond all expectations. "Sir, we are receiving messages of thanks from dozens of species. They are calling us the Liberators and asking for technical assistance with their independence movements." The irony was not lost on the survivors.